As we mentioned, the unrest broke out just hours after the funeral for Freddie Gray. More than 2,500 mourners crowded into the New Shiloh Baptist Church to pay their respects. Wyatt Andrews was there.
Freddie Gray was buried shortly after his emotional funeral, in which members of his family appeared to be near collapse. Several speakers here called Gray a martyr who died in the cause of exposing police injustice.
Did anybody recognize Freddie when he was alive? Did you see him?
Maryland Congressman Elijah Cummings represents Baltimore.
We will not rest. We will not rest until we address this and see that justice is done.
All of the speakers called for nonviolent protest, but there was no masking a sense of anger in the community.
I don't know how you can be black in America and be silent.
This is the Reverend Jamal Harrison Bryant.
After this day, we're going to keep on marching. After this day, we're going to keep demanding justice. Get your black self up and change this city.
It has been 2 weeks since Gray was arrested after fleeing from police, but there's still no public explanation from any of the 6 Baltimore police officers involved. Billy Murphy is the attorney for the Gray family.
We're calling for the police, the 6 of them who are at least being partially, if not totally implicated, to come forward and tell it all, just like you tell our citizens to do.
And Wyatt Andrews joins us now. Wyatt, we can hear quite a bit of activity there. We hear a helicopter. What is the scene where you are right now?
Elaine, earlier today, this was the scene of the funeral. It is relatively calm where we are. The high school where Chip Reed was reporting from is about 6 blocks north of where we are, and that was kind of the central war zone that Chip is describing, not very far from where this church is. But right now, the church where the funeral was, this was the scene of great grief and anguish earlier today, but it's calm here.
And what is it that you've heard, if anything, from church leaders in the wake of now, since his funeral has taken place, this violence that has erupted on the streets of Baltimore? Have you heard anything from church leaders there?
The members of, there was a pastor who gave a very spirited eulogy. We had a couple of clips of him. It was Jamal Bryant, very well-respected community leader and pastor here in Baltimore. But he went out after his spirited eulogy in probably believing that he may have been misinterpreted, that maybe he was urging something other than a nonviolent reaction. And he went out into the protest to ask for calm and to ask for people to stand down. And what we saw during the speaker after speaker here, there were several pastors, several lay speakers. They all asked for Baltimore to rise up with a kind of a forceful and determined reaction, but every single one of them stressed that it needed to be nonviolent. In fact, many of the speakers stressed that the old Martin Luther King refrain that violence actually is counterproductive. So even though you could say that this funeral, as it was broadcast to much of the Baltimore community, probably stoked a lot of anger and a lot of grief, and that contributed to the tense atmosphere. No one from the podium here at this church today advocated violence. It was just the opposite.
All right, and Wyatt, what are you seeing now in terms of police presence? Are there any police officers, any sign of law enforcement where you are right now?
What the 7-Eleven that was looted is probably a mile to our south, Elaine, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but the helicopter, the police helicopter monitoring that, is hovering near where we are. As far as we know, there have not been gangs or new waves of gangs or protesters leaving the area of the high school where the main protest today began. So this area of northwest Baltimore is calm. To our south, though, is where that 7-Eleven is on fire.
All right. Wyatt Andrews reporting from Baltimore for us. Thank you, Wyatt.